Hello guys, and welcome to Lee Stafford Education Masterclass Live. I'm Lee Stafford and I'm going to be your host again today. How are you all feeling on this Monday afternoon? Please let us know in the comments with a little emoji whether you're feeling happy or, I don't know, looking forward to your holidays or, I don't know. How's the weather where you are? Give us a little emoji and let me know what's going on and how you're feeling. We've got a very special staff for you today. They are a private educator for Redken, travel all around the world, doing shows and seminars to experienced hairdressers. They are a session hairdresser as well and a double salon owner, as well as being a very, very talented and nice person. So please, guys, let me introduce you to Rory McPhee.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see everyone this morning. Hope everyone's feeling good. Feel free to put comments in the boxes. Any questions you've got for throughout today, please ask as many questions as possible. That would be fantastic. I think I've spoke to most people that will be on this link. And Lee's kind of said who I am, what I am. I'm a hairdresser who does all sorts of different aspects of hairdressing, from in salon 2 to 3 days a week, doing session work, doing a lot of education. So I've kind of got a broad aspect of the hairdressing world and how hairdressing is. So that's me. If you want to know any more about me, then feel free to jump on my Instagram, Rory McPhee, and feel free to ask me any questions there, because I'm always happy to help any hairdressers in with whatever I can do. But today, what we're going to be doing, as well as me and Lee having a chat throughout the morning, is we're going to be taking the string dress recipe, and we're going to be putting a little twist on it in terms of the string dress, just to show you a little bit how it can be much quicker in the salon, and trying to understand when we put the string in for something a little bit fun and different, how we can take that back to, again, something I talk about often, the basic principle of what we're putting the string in there for and what we're using it to create. And we're going to use a tongue instead of the string today to create the same texture that we need for this very undone, very natural updo, and just give you a little insight into how it's different with the tongue. So just to delve straight in, and then if anyone wants to jump in with questions as we go, please do. So before I've come on today, what I've done is, as is in the recipe, exactly the same. I've taken the hair to almost dry by wafting it off. I've then used mousse, and also I like to use a little bit of salt spray as well. So I've used mousse and salt spray together, and I've just come through, just going to move the head around so you can see a little bit, just come through in sections, exactly the same as it is on the recipe, layering mousse and salt spray, nothing too precise about it, just making sure I'm getting an even spread throughout the hair, working all the way up to the top. So I'm layering mousse and salt spray all the way through till I get to the very top. Once this mousse and salt spray is all into the hair, I've then taken my hairdryer, dried back over the top to almost dry, just really getting a natural texture in the hair, and then finished off with my flat brush and just done a really gentle wrap dry, just into a really natural centre part. And what this has done, and it's a really key thing, and it's the first thing that helped me massively. When I first started off as a hairdresser, I wasn't overly confident in dressing hair and doing hair up that comes into the salon. But one of the things that I once was taught by a hairdresser was it all comes from the initial prep that you do on the hair. So this hair, if it's going to go up, you don't want that silky, soft hair that we sometimes look for from a luscious blow dry or something, because what's going to happen with that hair is as soon as we start to place it into position, it's all going to start to part on us. It's all going to start to be too soft and too healthy. What we need to create is a little bit of grit in this hair. So it's still got the shine that this does, but it's got like almost like a matte effect. So when this hair, it doesn't spread as easy, it doesn't part as easy. And this is going to give me the texture that I need to be able to put up hair really nice and quickly with a soft, effortless finish without having to use loads of hairspray, loads of grips, and really kind of panicking that it's not going to stay up for the rest of the day. So key aspect number one to take away from today is make sure your prep is right. And if you get to the end of putting your mousse in, putting your salt spray in, and it still doesn't feel right, just go back in with more mousse, more salt spray, dry it back in again until you really get that texture that's not overloaded with product, but it's definitely got the feeling of product on the hair, because that's what we want that to be at the start. So that's what the point we've got to now. So the next thing we're going to do is just very naturally, just turn this head around so you can see.
A beautiful colour, Rory.
Oh, thank you. Jazzed her up a little bit. A real natural centre part coming down the back. So this is like what we would have had on the string dress, but the string would just come and sit on the top. But because we're going to be using a tongue, I'm just going to split it just for my ease and convenience to split one side to the other. And then I'm going to take my first side and I'm going to start. So I'm going to imagine where my string is when I'm putting the string in. So if you remember from the video, the string comes from the hairline, runs round and just underneath the occipital bone. So that's going to be my sectioning pattern, but to do my tongue instead. Tongue-wise, I today have gone for the Lee Stafford long barrel tongue. Like we talked about, if you did see my twisted tongue, we talked a little bit about how sizes of tongues can really affect it. So this is what I would call a medium-sized barrel. It's quite long, so it's quite nice for longer hair. So this is going to give me a medium type curl to work with. If I went for something like the chopstick, like I did in that other video, like we talked about, I'd get a really tight curl. Or if I went for a real beach wavy type one, I'd get an even softer. So this is a nice in-between, shall we say. And I'm going to take sections exactly the same as we do on the video in the string dress. So I'm just going to take a vertical section coming down. And my first section is just going to wrap as in, imagine this being my string now. Let me make sure you guys can see. So imagine this being my string. The hair's going to come up and over and just wrap around it. And then this is going to be my first section. So I'm just got it like that. So the hair's come around it as if we've popped it up and over the string. Going to hold it for 6-7 seconds. Really let that start to set into the hair. And then next time I'm going to change the angle so you can see it from the other side. And then I've got my first section. So let's see if we can then do that so you can see a little bit more again. So
Rory, what would be the sort of main difference between doing it with the string or doing it with the tongue?
So what we're doing with the string is we're probably going to get a little bit of a tighter finish, because with the string, what we're creating is we're just looking, it's like doing a set. So it's the same as if we put a roller in that hair to create the set. It's the same as if we were going and putting any form of object when the hair's wet and then wrapping it around it. The hair will take on the form of what it's being wrapped around. But as we know, when we're in the salon, one, it's not often we have some string unless we know the recipe. But two, sometimes, we need to have different alterations. And sometimes we have clients that come in who don't necessarily have the time to go from wet to dry. So this is just a way of showing, I guess, an express version of what we're doing. So we're doing exactly what the string does. So we're creating a curl and texture in the hair. But instead of going from wet to dry, we're using a heat applicator to create the same type of texture in the hair. But then I think the key aspect to think about and to remember is it's more about thinking exactly as when we spoke about doing the twisted tongue, is your end result of what you want. So my thought process is if this lady was coming in and just wanted dry styling, I was going to use the tongue, I wanted something a little bit tighter, I'd just make my barrel smaller. And what that means is I'm then going to have more texture up here and it's going to have more of a wave movement. So that's the thing we need to start thinking about as hairdressers in the salon and young hairdressers that are coming through, thinking about the start process of what we want that's going to give us our end result. So I've thought about that and thought for my look today, I want a really soft, nice, casual look. So I'm going to go for a really nice mid-length type barrel. Also, it then comes to size of sections as well, like we talked about previously. So that's going to come up and over again. I'm using quite thicker sections. So again, this is meaning I'm going to get texture, but the texture is going to be spread out a little bit more. Whereas if I was doing smaller, tighter sections, I would be getting more texture. And if I was doing huge, big sections, I'd be getting less texture. So that's kind of where we're thinking and where we're replicating the string, but with a tongue instead. And I'm letting these come off and really keep in their curl. So they're cooling down in their curl pattern.
It's really setting nicely. That would be all down to the prepping, right?
Well, yeah, that's all down to because of the products we've put in, like we talked about. We've used the Lee Stafford mousse and we've used the Lee Stafford salt spray. So it's given us a load of texture in this hair, but I'm going to try and do it from the back so you can see this time. So it's going to come up and over like the string would, then it's wrapping and then it's setting. So yes, so because we've used that pre-prep product, And that's why it's really setting in nicely. And it's only going to take 6 or 7 seconds, and then can come off. And I'm not pulling anything. Like sometimes when we're doing waving in these days, we start to pull straight away to soften it off. For this, because we're using it as more of a set, we're wanting it to set into the hair. So I'm not worrying at the minute about starting to pull the hair and trying to build softness in the hair. I want that little bit of strength and texture in the actual set at the start. So I'm just going to take one more. It's going to come up over.
So if you wanted that to set even stronger, Rory, would you pin that, like do a pin curl?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So yeah, so you could use pins, or in fact, I'll show you one of them in 1 second, just what you would do. So if I wanted to make this a bit tighter, like Lee said, I would do the same, hold it for 6 to 7 seconds. Then you could use some form of pin or some form of grip. What are really good for it are these little like setting grips. Then what you do is you just take the curl, push it back up on itself. So you've got this curl back in its form of where it came from. Then you just bring the clip through there, and then you just hold it. And the reason that's going to be even tighter is because the set comes from the hair going from hot to cold. As it cools down, that's where the set comes in. So if I want it tighter like that, by putting that in, it's cooling down even more compressed. So what we'll do is I'll leave them the same. Then on the other side, I'll do the same, and I will pin that one on that side. And maybe we'll see the difference of when it's cooled like that and when it's cooled, it's being pinned up. And we might see a bit of a difference in terms of how it then is dressed out at the end. But we'll see that on the other side. So we've done one side now. So just to recap, like we said, I've taken slightly bigger sections in the video because I'm just looking for soft texture. I've used my tongue exactly as the string, so you can see the pattern as it's coming through there. That's where the string would have sat, and that's where my tongue sat. So you can see that's where my first bit of movement comes from. Left these to cool naturally, and I've worked around to centre back. And now I'm going to come to the other side and repeat exactly the same through this side, looking for symmetry. So I have to imagine where that string sat on this side, so I'm not getting unevenness in my start there to there. So you can see on this side where my wave movement starts. If I start too high on this side, then my wave movement will be different. And all of a sudden, one of the main things also about when you're putting hair up is you want balance and symmetry, unless you're going for something very asymmetric. And something as simple as at the start, doing your wave pattern different to the other side could be something that knocks the symmetry off straight away. So it's something else we just need to be thinking about.
So tell me this, Rory, the client journey.
Yeah.
The client journey, is that when a client walks in the salon and the journey they go through the salon, i.e. through reception and having their hair washed and into the hairdresser's chair and to the till to pay? But is it also the client journey from when that client leaves the salon to when they come back again? And what is more important, and how do you deal with both?
So yeah, so for me personally, the client journey begins from how did they find out about you? So the first part of their journey is their first interaction with you as a salon, and 9 times out of 10, that's going to come from how did they hear about you? Was it a recommendation? Was it marketing? Was it your Instagram? So a lot of hairdressers and young hairdressers these days, a great way to build up your clientele is by having a really strong social media that's showing your work off. So the first part of it, so let's say it's that, so it's social media. So firstly, the clients come to you on social media, they've found you. So the first thing you've got to think about then is your social media look good? Does it look professional? Do you have a hair one compared to a personal one? If you do have personal things alongside hair, is it within branding of what you'd want someone to have in the see of you in the salon? So that's what we have to think about social media. Say all of that's ticked and you know your social media's looked really good and that's why they've been drawn into you. The next thing is there then something that lets them know where they can find you? So where can they come and see you for hair? So that should be, you know, either a link to the website in your bio area, or at least a mention of what salon, or tag your salon in the post so that people then can see, well, if I want to go see Claire, who's got this amazing social media, I'm then going to go to this salon. So the next thing, let's say they've done that, they've gone to the salon website, they've booked in with you, everything's gone perfect. The next part of a client journey for me is then the first thing when they walk in the door, isn't it? So walking in the door to the salon, particularly for the first time, is a daunting experience. So we need to think about the client journey there. And the client, as you know, I can imagine, Lee, as well, with you should tell yours, the client can be lost in that very first interaction and first set time with them.
Do you know what, Rory? Do you know what? One of my friends, one of my very, very good friends who I grew up with, when I opened up my salon, he used to say to me, and he was a confident guy, he wasn't unconfident. He used to say that every time he walked up to the salon, even though he knew me very well, he used to get very nervous. Yeah, about walking into the salon. Now, this is someone that I know very well. So, how do people that you don't know very well feel?
It's true. And I can imagine, particularly with what I know of your salons in the past, there were very cool salons full of very cool people, weren't there? So, you can understand that, but you don't want to lose that from the salon. That's kind of what it is. But then if that person feels nervous walking up to the salon, but then as soon as they walk in the front door, you or someone else has greeted them by the name straight away, said, hi, how are you doing? Glad to see you today. Got a very warm feeling. All of that disappears very quickly, doesn't it? The last thing you want is to come into a salon where you're already a bit apprehensive. And no matter if it's the coolest salon in the world or just any salon, I think the first time you walk into a salon and you're going to see a new hairdresser and you're potentially going to start a new journey with that hairdresser, like we all know, is a daunting thing in itself, because you're thinking already, is this hairdresser going to get me? Am I going to get what I want? And if you walk into a salon and that's the feeling you have, and then you come in and you stood in the corner or in the window for 5 minutes because no one's noticed you, then all of a sudden someone goes, oh, do you have an appointment today? Kind of just ruins the whole experience from the start, doesn't it? One of the first things I always say to my stylist is, when you first come in the morning, it's your job, even if you have a receptionist or not, or a person on front of house, it's your job to look at all your clientele, know the name of each individual one. If they've been in before, you'll know them by face. If not, know the time of what they're going to be coming in. And then be aware that around that time, you're looking out for that person. And even if you're with another client, you've either break off for a second or you brief front of house and you say, I've got such and such coming in at such and such time. Would you be able to say hello to them, offer them a refreshment, get them to sit down, or you do the same if we don't have a front of house? You say to your client is in the chair, just to break off 1 second, then welcome your client in, get them to take a seat, depending on the size of the salon, and then just say, I'm going to be with you in a few minutes, really nice to see you today. Something like that from the start of the client journey sets you up, like we talk about, sets you up for a win, it sets you up for success. Because that client's already like, oh, wow, I'm new into the salon, but they know my name, they've taken the time to come and say hello to me, do all of that type of stuff. So I'm sat there with my coffee and refreshment or not, whatever. Then I already feel a lot better about my journey, I guess, shall we say. So that's another key part. The next thing for me personally, just like, I'm just wrapping this on the other side. So we've got them back to, so we've got symmetry. And what we're going to do now, just very quickly before we go back to the client journey, is I'm just going to take a bit of a working hairspray. And what I mean by working hairspray is it's a hairspray that's not going to set hard. I can still run my fingers through it nice and easily. And just as it's cooling down, this is just going to give me an extra little bit of hold. So we'll let that all cool down for a second, because like we said, it's really important that this is completely cool before I start to run my hands through and start to break it down. But yeah, so the clients come into the salon. The next thing is obviously being in the chair with them. So you brought them over to the chair. The next really important thing is your consultation, isn't it? So the consultation is where you find out about this person either for the first time, or you find out about how this person was since the last time you did their hair. So, you're finding out about hair history, how they manage their own hair, how, all of these, I'm not going to go into a consultation time, but, everyone knows the vast things that go into a consultation.
And tell me this, Rory, in the consultation, is that where you would talk about products, recommend retail? Is that where you would try to upsell somebody, i.e. get additional services going, or could that be later on?
I think it could come at either side, yes. If it's coming in consultation where very early on, sometimes maybe more, I personally think, where hair care rather than styling comes in that regards for me. So what I mean by hair care is their shampoo and conditioner, maybe the protein treatment that they need because you can see the hair's quite damaged, maybe the extra like back bar treatments or an in-depth treatment that you might add on to the service. That's where that can come in. The other thing that could come in the early in the consultation, I personally think, and particularly for young stylists or new stylists, shall we say, who have big gaps in their day, that's where they should be trying to upsell to fill them gaps anyway. And I don't like the word sell, but upsell just means you've got the time to offer that person everything you would need and they need for their hair. So this is the time to say to them, you know, why don't we do a clear gloss on your hair today as well to give your hair a really nice shine? Or why don't we do a protein treatment at the back bar today because we've got a bit of extra time. Your hair's really going to need it because like we've just talked about, it's damaged, it's starting to break, you've been having previous highlights overlapped. That's where the upsell can come in that regards for me. And then once you've then gone through the service, styling upsell for me then comes more on the end where you're styling it out and you're showing them what products you're using to finish their hair. So say, like I said, if we're using maybe an oil or something, I'd be using the oil and then I'd be putting it, and then I wouldn't just put the oil away, I'd be popping the oil in front of them and then letting them know this is the oil that I've used on the hair today and this is why they used it. Something that a mutual friend of mine, Lee's called Matt, he once gave me a really good thing to give to your stylist, and it says, if you touch it, you have to talk about it. So because it's part of that client journey as well, anyone wants to know if something's going on their hair, what it is and why it's being used. So for that reason, if you're just a really quick thing, if you're a hairdresser and you're ever going to put a product on someone's hair, if you've touched it and you put it on the hair, then you have to talk to them about it and just, you don't have to sell them it. You just have to let them know I've used an oil today just to give a nice shine and finish and to help to moisturize the ends. That's all it is. So then when you get to the end, that client then has the opportunity to say to you, what was that oil again? Can I try some of that oil? Can I buy some of that oil? So, you know, the client journey, and it's a vast, I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about the client journey itself. But I guess the key aspect to think about the client journey is it keeps on going. So, you know, even once you finish their hair, the hair looks amazing, you're then taking them to the reception area, you then can then say to them, you know, advise them that I would say that you need to be booked back in however many weeks for this reason. So sometimes hairdressers are quite bad to, the same way as they're quite bad to sell or recommend products, they're quite bad to kind of recommend people to come back to the salon.
Why do you think that is, Rory? Why do you think, you know, a lot of hairdressers...
I think we come from as if we were stood on the other side of the counter rather than treating ourselves as professionals. And the way I always like to think about it is, if I was a dentist or I was at the dentist and the dentist says, you need to come back in 2 months for me to check that crown and check this and check that, because if we go any longer, there's a chance it might crack. I'm going to come back in 2 months, aren't I? Whereas for hairdressers, sometimes we'll go, oh, well, you probably should come back in 6 to 8 weeks. And if we just leave it at that, then 6 to 8 weeks is just the thought of, well, they just want me back in 6 to 8 weeks for money. But if we say, you know, if you're having let's say a bleach application retouch, and you say, well, you need to be back in 5 to 6 weeks, because averagely after 5 to 6 weeks, your root is bigger than what we call a regrowth. And what happens is the protein starts to harden, and then it makes it into a different surface, because we have to do 2 types of service to make sure we don't overlap the hair.
Don't get a stripe.
So you give, exactly, so you don't get banding in the hair. So if you give them the reason of why that is, then they're more likely to say, oh, okay, that makes sense, I'll come in, rather than just, oh, well, you need to be back in 8 weeks or 6 weeks or 5 weeks and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's also more professional. You know, we're trying to make hairdressing into such a strong professional industry. So if what we can do is by give that professional service that you would expect from the doctors or from the dentists or from wherever, then it's really, really important. And then the last part of the client service is then the follow-up, isn't it? So, you know, if it's someone who you've done a big change to, maybe send them a message on Instagram, or if the salon has software that texts them to make sure everything was okay with the visit. Also things like signs about please give us feedback, because obviously we learn massively from our feedback as well. So the client journey is...
Do you do that with every client, Rory?
Not every client, but yeah, if there was a client who I'd done quite a change to, I would definitely on either Instagram or email them. Obviously, you've got to be careful of like data protection and stuff, but I definitely would send them a message and just say, how's your hair feeling? And I'm always, it's exactly the same as when I'm educating. I always say, please feel free to message me or ask me any questions, or if you get home and you style it and it's not quite styling the same as how I styled it, please do kind of give me a shout or come back in the salon. Give them that, make them feel really, really like comfortable and really natural with you. So then, they will do. And don't get me wrong, when you're very early in your hairdressing career, sometimes you are going to do stuff that's not 100% spot on, like it's just going to happen. We still do it now. So when you're early on in your career, it's going to happen. But if you, from the very start of the client journey, are very open with them and say, I'm always here to kind of, if your stuff hasn't, gone to exactly how you want it, please feel free just to reach out, come back into the salon. We can then, go from there. Stops what is the most horrible thing for a hairdresser is them just leaving a review on Google, 1 star, terrible, horrible haircut, because they didn't feel they had that relationship with you to say, they did say that I might not be 100% with it. So let me go back in first and just see what they think about it before I start to leave reviews. For me, that's a big one, because it can be a massive hit for a young hairdresser, if they've put a lot of time and effort into a style, and then the next day or a couple of days later, you get a 1-star review on Treatwell or whether you use the booking service. So, even that can really, really help as well for me personally. But if anyone has any questions about client journeys or struggles with client journeys or, anything like that, please do ask, because I have just tried to top line a lot of that to try and get all of the client journey in. Or if there's anything I've missed, please ask. But what you can see, what I've done there is I've just started to use my hands as a big comb, and I've just now started to, all of that was cold, so now I've just started to break it all up. Then I'm just going back in with, we use a dry shampoo on the video, but for me, because I've got different colours here and I don't have a coloured dry shampoo, again, I'm just using my working hairspray just to build texture in between that to give me a little bit of natural volume as well.
How does everyone feel about recommending products? I'd love to know. Please send us a message in the comments. Do you find it easy talking about products, recommending products, selling products? Do you find it uncomfortable? What successes have you had? When did you recommend or sell something and it went really well? And when did you do something where it didn't go so well? I would love to hear your comments and views on that.
So I've now combed it over. I've gone for a nice natural side parting, so finding where it's going to fall naturally and using the shape of the head to find where that natural parting is going to be. One thing for me when I'm doing hair up, I think hair up is very much personal preference. Some people do very structured hairs up. Some people do very natural hairs up. I think it really depends what you like to do and what you want your style to be. For me personally, I like very natural. So for me, that's kind of not too many structured partings, not using too many grips. So that's why for me, I haven't put a strong part in. I've just found it naturally, and the shape of the head's really helped me to do that. And then like on the video, like we see, I'm then just going to use the palm of my head to give myself a section that comes round, just to section away the top from the bottom. So hands always on the hairline. Bring that around so you can see again. So my hand's on the hairline, then it's just coming down. And I'm just checking each way as I go. So my hairline's there, so I've got a nice section there. And then I'm going to come around on the other side and do exactly the same. So hand on the hairline, sectioning above it.
How many of your clients do you think leave reviews, Rory?
I mean, we try to promote now a lot of them to leave reviews, because I think it's one of the main things we are a society now that just loves to read and see reviews, aren't we? So yeah, we kind of, as much as possible, are trying to get people to leave as many reviews as possible, really, because one, we know our work's good and we kind of want people to shout about it. But I mean, it's the same as like anyone. If you're going to book a holiday, or you're going to, go to eat at a restaurant, or you're going to do anything like that, what you're always looking for initially is, you do go online, don't you? And you look for the reviews and see kind of what the place looks like. It's just what we do as a society now. So for me, it's kind of and that's why websites like Trustpilot and stuff have launched and are so big now, because people want to know what people think about it. I think it's really important.
Rory, is it easy for someone to leave a review on a salon?
Yeah, with things like Google and stuff now. I mean, Google's a massive one that's really seems to have taken off quite a lot recently for me personally. And yeah, people can just go online through Google and then leave a review through Google, and in a second. It doesn't take long. Yeah, Google is a big one. But yeah, I mean, all of you can leave them now on Facebook. Facebook's a big one that people leave a lot of reviews on. So yeah, I would say but it's also really, I think we need to see it as a tool and not as kind of a bad thing, if that makes sense. So I think, for me, for my stylist, I'm telling them to speak to people about, leaving reviews and talk to them about, going on and leaving reviews, because they're a really powerful thing to, start to build up a clientele very quickly.
Mm.
So sectioning-wise, got our side part, the sections coming, just going to take back a little bit, sections coming over the top, so our braid is going to come through the top, round the side and underneath, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. But the only slight difference we're doing here to the video is in the video that we do what is called a Dutch braid. So a Dutch braid is where the hair comes up and over, which makes the braid stand more proud. Whereas this way we're doing the more natural version, which is the French braid. So where the hair is just coming over the top and it sits a little bit more flatter and softer to the head. But everything else works exactly the same. So as you can see, what I've done there to give myself a flat surface, I've just got the head to tip slightly. You can do this with a client. As long as it's done naturally, just pop your head to the side slightly. Then we're just going to take our first section, split it into 3. So I've got 3 sections now. So I had no sections, split it into 3, then start to just do our normal braid. So we're just going over to the middle, over to the middle. Once the braid has started to build up, that's when I can then start to add hair to the braid. So the hair is coming from either side of the section. So without sounding like I'm repeating myself too much, so hair comes up and over into the middle, then the outside hair strand flips over. So let me try to do that.
Is this the same as what you would do on a string dress?
It's the same, apart from on a string dress, I'd be coming up and over, under, whereas on this one, if you can see what I'm doing, so let me take a hair from this side. So the hair's coming and it's just coming over, if that makes sense. So I've joined that to that one now, and then it's just coming over, whereas on the string dress, it would come under. And what's happening with that is, it's just making it, you'll see once I start to build the braid up a little bit, is it's just when you do the string dress and we do that, that's what we call a Dutch braid, the braid stands a lot more proud of the head. Whereas with this, you can see the braid starting to sit, well, let me get a couple more and then you might be able to see it. The braid sits a lot flatter to the head, and it's just from this hair coming over and not under. So in the Dutch, we'd go under, with this, we're coming over the top like that. So it's sitting all a little bit flatter to the head.
Gotcha.
So it's just the different types of braids that kind of give us, again, thinking about the different effects we want. So maybe what I might use this type of braid for more than the Dutch is if I'm doing, say, wedding hair or something, and I want it to be really, really just soft and natural, sometimes a Dutch version can be a little bit too strong sometimes. So by just doing something like this that's a French, it's just a little bit softer, lends itself a little bit more to floatier type styles, just a little bit more gentle. So again, it's thinking about, try to bring this back up. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit, but what we need to remember when we're braiding also to stop bagging is we need to keep our hands as close to the scalp as possible. So that's why as I come through to the back, I'm starting to lean the head forwards as well, so I can keep on getting in here. So if the head was up in a natural position, what would probably happen is once then I'd finished, I'd find out it'd be quite baggy underneath. But by putting the head forwards like that and then taking the hair, what that means then is I then can get a much softer and like tighter finish to the head. So I just need to keep it as close to the scalp as possible.
And do you do a lot of braiding in the salon, or is this more a session thing, Rory?
I do braiding. I mean, I sometimes do braiding to section hair away from each other when I'm cutting. It's a really good way to kind of quickly section hair. But yeah, it's definitely more of a session thing, or more of like I don't often do wedding hair, but if I'm doing wedding hair, I do use braids a lot. Because for me, particularly when you're putting hair up, shall we say, I think braiding's so good because it just gets rid of so much hair so quickly, but in such a nice, elegant way. So, we can use braids to just, when you've got that hair that's just so much hair, pop it in a braid, just gets rid of it all so quickly. So then you can then have more control to play with and do it. So to the bottom there now, you can see the braid's nice and tight to the head. There's no bagginess in the roots. So now I'm then just going to finish the braid off just by braiding all the way down to the bottom. And then once I've done that, I'll re-show you the braid before we then do the other side. But braids is like anything, it's just practice. I mean, I'm quite good at my standard braids, Dutch, French, some of the other ones. But I mean, the amount of, some people, the braids, I don't know if you've ever watched it on YouTube, if you've ever been like into that. But people do the most intricate, amazing looking braids. And it's just like, it's a real art in itself is braiding. And again, you're a young hairdresser that wants to set yourself apart and do something different, with all the resources we have these days with YouTube and stuff. So I'm just back combing that hair now. That's just going to keep it in place and secure without having to put bands in. So you can see there, that's kind of, can you see the difference?
Yeah.
So it's that much more like flatter to the head than that Dutch braid that kind of sits off of the head. With the colour, it looks a little bit more like, a bit more mermaidy, I guess. So I'm going to come to this side, and now I'm doing exactly the same again. So I'm starting off on this side, take my section, split it into 3. So I've got 3 sections now. And I just start my braid again. So I'm going over, 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 over. And once I've got the braid started, I can then start to add this hair into it. So hair from half of the side, up, over and in, pull tight, hair from the other half of the side, and in, pull over and tight. And then you just keep on repeating exactly the same again like we did on the other side. And this part I'm working flat to the head, and then as I come to the side of the head, that's when the head's going to start to move again to keep me that really nice flat section. And I'm keeping everything nice and clean in my fingers, so I'm not getting confused at all as well. So I've got there, the head shape started to change, so I'm going to move the head so it makes it easier for me to braid. And braids are just practice. Well, it's like all of hairdressing, isn't it? But braids are one of them things that they look so intricate and strange to do at first if you can't do it. Particularly as, I think a lot of the times, a guy coming into hairdressing with, a lot of the times girls, because they've had long hair most of the time, and most of us guys don't, even though some of it's more do now than ever. Girls are very good naturally at braiding anyway, because they've done it on their own hair over time, get it out of the way for gym class or whatever. Whereas us guys don't, sometimes we look at braiding for the first time and we're a bit like, Jesus, what's happening there type thing. But it's just practicing it, it's just seeing it, breaking it down, taking it slow at first, till eventually you just kind of all of a sudden it goes, oh, that makes sense now.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with braiding?
A little while, and I think for me what it was I once did watch a video. I wanted to be good at hair, I wanted to have a certain level of standard of being able to, if someone comes in the salon and they want their hair putting up for an event or something like that, I thought it was quite important to be able to do something. And I saw I think it was a video that maybe Guido had done or something like that. Guido's like a really famous session stylist for anyone that doesn't know. And he did this hair up that was, as I say, he did a braid and it just got rid of so much hair so quickly. And then it just made it all go, but still looked amazing at the same time. And that's when I kind of thought, well, if I can master that and I can master getting rid of a lot of hair through braiding, then hair up's not going to be, because hair ups used to be so daunting to me, because all I'd seen before that was hairdressers, using 400 pins to put something in place and then putting hairspray on it as well. And then just like, I'm like, what happens if a pin falls out? Oh my God, this is terrible. So in terms of scary terrible, not as in the hair was terrible. So yes, braiding just became a thing where I was like, well, I've seen how easy it is there. So if I can use it like that as a tool, then that would be, an amazing and easy thing for me, and will make me less nervous when that client walks in on a Saturday and everyone left with a gap and they're like, I want my hair putting up for such and such, and you're like, oh, okay. And you start trending because you're thinking, well, I'm not bloody sure what I'm doing here. And as soon as
a lot of hairdressers are scared of hair up.
So many hairdressers just literally say, I don't do hair up. I don't do hair up, which is fine, if you don't want to do it. And I say that to my stylists myself, if there's something you really don't enjoy doing, then don't do it. We're not here to make you do stuff. But for me personally as a hairdresser, I wanted to have a good grounding in everything. I've then in time found the stuff I specialize in, but I wanted to have a good grounding, and it has helped massively. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do the session work I've done without having a good understanding of hair up. I'm not by nowhere a bridal hairdresser, or I don't make these amazing creations of hair that you see, on Instagrams and stuff, where people are building these almost structured statues almost. But I have a good understanding of ponytails, braiding, how to create texture in the hair, waving, and how to place stuff that's given me enough of, I've never felt out of my depth when I've been on a photo shoot or I've been on a fashion week team or something like that. And that's just from knowing and understanding those basics of ponytails, braids, scalp braids, and textures and waves.
Yeah, and trends have changed so much over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, whereas, it was all about the haircut. The haircut is still a very important part of the salon. Dressing and colouring is just having a heyday, isn't it?
Those haircutters have been left behind and we're coming back.
Yeah.
So what I've got there now is I've got my 2 braids, and like we see in the video, we then can start to, if we want, and depending on what look we're looking for, we can start to soften off, and we can soften off by pulling the braid. So I'm just making it a bit baggier, softening it all off a little bit, and I'm working from the bottom, so then it starts to build bagginess. I can also then start to use my fingers a little bit to massage the braid. And as long as you put the braid in strong enough at the start, there's not going to be any problem of hair falling out. Even if you've got a layered haircut, and you're worried about bits falling out, as long as the braid structure is good enough at the start, you don't have to worry about that too much. So we're just building a nice bit of softness, just pulling on the strands a little bit, and it's just starting to bag the braid and opening it up. And I'll probably do a little bit more of that when I've actually got my finished braid in place and I'm starting to see the finished look. But I'm just starting to soften it off on both sides, just doing that a little bit. So as I say, pulling a little bit, massaging a little bit, just pulling that hair and allowing it just to expand and not be quite as precise as what maybe your ballet braids might be if you went to ballet class.
Lisa says she loves doing hair up. Why do you love doing hair up, Lisa? Do you love cutting? Martin Holmes, now this is an expert on hair up, loving the colours on your blockhead, Rory. Thanks, Martin. Me and Martin, we work together. God, how long ago did we work together, Martin? It must be 25 years ago. Me and Martin started working together. Might even be longer than that. And we worked for many, many years. And Martin is a staff with Lee Stafford Education, TV star now as well. He did the TV. What was the show you did again, Martin? It was called 1990. He said we first started working together. Wow, that's 30. 1 year ago. Wow. How time flies. Yeah, Martin's a real expert in putting hair up. He absolutely loves it. I think
a proper expert in putting hair up.
Yeah. But he always had a passion for it, you know. Right from the early days, you know. Extreme Hair Wars, that was it. Martin did that for a few seasons. He was a judge on that.
So just to let you know what I've done there. So again, I've sprayed a little bit of my working hairspray in to give it an extra texture. Now, as the same as the recipe, I'm just going to back comb the first 3 sections. So my comb's going in, and it's just pushing down to the root. So I'll show that again so you can see it. So obviously, if I was in the salon, I'd be stood here, but just for you guys to see, the comb goes in, pushes down. So it's not that type of movement you see sometimes that just creates fuzz and frizz. All we're trying to do is create structure at the base of that hair. So that's all it needs to be. And I'm just going to take 2 more sections and do exactly the same. So again, section across, comb goes in, pushes to the roots, pushes to the roots, pushes to the roots. So I've got a load of structure there, but I've not got loads of unnecessary frizz that I need to try and get rid of at the end.
What mistakes can people make when they're backcombing, Rory?
So for me personally, what you see a lot of people doing is to do this type of action.
Yeah.
You just get this, which is all this, and that's not what you need. Unless you're looking to like create, say, like a beehive or something, and you need backcombing from root to tip. Most hair up, we're just looking for a bit of extra structure at the root to give us an extra something to play with. So the comb only needs to go in, like what is that, 2 or 3 inches from the base, and then it's just a strong push downwards, and that's all it needs to make it stand up. You don't need that, like you've just lost it, and that's all it needs. That, for me personally, that's all it needs to be. And then you just then get your dressing brush. So for me, I'm just going to use, like I like to use like a dressing brush like that just to smooth it out. And again, it's then just a very gentle, just comb over the top. So I'm keeping, these are good because when people use combs the first time they're using them, they sometimes go in too deep and they comb out everything they've just put in. But what we're aiming to do is we're just coming over the surface of the hair. So if you can see, my brush is going in and it's just tickling just the surface.
You're leaving the roots.
So I'm leaving all of that, because otherwise, if I didn't want that in the roots, why have I done the backcombing in the first place? So the backcombing being there,
Alicia Martin says hello from Abingdon and Whitney College. We are loving this live. Thank you for tuning in, Alicia. We had a little Zoom call the other day, didn't we? Catching up on all things LSE. Great to hear from you today.
So we can see from that silhouette, we've got all of that bounce in there still, but now it's a much smoother finish. It's not got, you can't see where the backcombing is. So then what we're going to do is split it in half, exactly the same as the recipe. And then we're just going to spin this hair underneath. And then what I'm going to do is have my brush in my hand at the same time, just to make sure it looks smooth through the side as well. And it's just going to come up and over like it does in the recipe, exactly the same. So I'm just going to just wrap around, wrap around, wrap around. And remember, when we're wrapping, the braid has to come over first, then it locks it all in. If the other hair comes over first, it's less likely to be locked in and you might get more flyaway bits coming out. So make sure the braid is the thing that comes over the hair first, and that locks everything inside.
Nice, colour looks great.
To the bottom, bit of back combing again, just to keep it all in place, so we're not using loads of bands. Then we'll do exactly the same on the other side. So make sure it's smooth through the side. I've got no flyaway bits. If I needed to, if I did have any flyaway bits at this point, again, I can always pick up a little bit of like a working hairspray just to kind of get a hold of the flyaway bits. Or another good thing to do if you don't want to overload is by putting hairspray onto your brush. So that's a good one to know, because sometimes if you're not used to putting hair up and we spray hairspray on, we can sometimes overload too much. And if we need to dress it out more, you can start to then have to brush hairspray out, which makes it all go a little bit flaky. So by spraying onto your brush instead, and then the control is in the brush, and then combing that way is another way of getting that hairspray in without having to worry about overloading the hair too much. Then exactly the same, we're going to wrap it up and over, braid locks it in, and just wrap it down. All the way to the bottom. And again,
what do you think this look would be perfect for, Rory?
This look could be perfect for anything to do with, like, well, this would be kind of, you know, you can see it's going to be like a nice festival look, but this could be a bridal look. It could be a like just a going out look, that for someone that kind of doesn't want too structured of a look. You know, it can be, when it's soft like that, it can be whatever it wants. But yeah, I would say kind of festival-y type look, or like a soft bridal-y like look for me personally. So what we're going to do now, like, we're going to take the hair, put it into a knot, and then just pull that hair up and down, and we start to create that knot. Then we go side to side and create that knot. And this knot, that's a good knot to do, but you know, now we've got the plait in, this knot could go wherever it wants to go, really. It could, you know, you could do whatever you needed to do with it. So we've created like a little bit of a knot there, but once you've got the plait in, you know, there's nothing to stop you just bringing all that hair together and then bringing it back up on itself. Because you've got the plait in now, you know, this is when you can then start to play and have fun with your hairdressing. But we're just going to stick to recipe for now. So we've just come up, through, and then side to side, and then knot. And then we're getting our knot into place. So it's kind of giving us that bun at the back. And then we're just going to start to then pin this into place. So we're going to pin this into place just using soft grips.
All comes together at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah. And all we're going to do is the grip goes in, up, over, and back in on itself. So let me do that one more time. So you can try to do it so you can see. So the pin's going in, up, over, and then back in on itself. So it's going in, up, over, and back in on itself. And that's anchoring the hair into position. So if you're just pinning pins in, naturally gravity and the force of the hair is going to push them back out. But by coming up and over and then pinning them in, it's like an anchor. So it anchors them into place a little bit better for you. And if you put grips into place properly, you don't have to use many grips, which for me personally is what you want to do, because the less grips, the more secure you know it is already, and the more you're just worrying, less you're worrying about just certain grips holding it into place. This is a good one. So if you ever do have a little bit of like hair that's like this, that's left over, the good thing to do is let your grip catch it, spin it a couple of times so it holds it, and then just get rid of it then by just holding it and then just pushing it in and away. And then that will kind of catch them loose ends that we have. So just by grabbing it, letting it stick together, and then just pushing it in there, you just lose it. You can lose them flowery bits that sometimes people resort to putting a load of hairspray on them to try and get rid of them. You just need to just get that sometimes and then just pin them away, and that's a much quicker and easier way to do it almost, without having to overload too much hair with hairspray. So now what I'm going to do is, this is kind of for our last few minutes, is kind of where we start to look at the shape we're creating and try to figure what we want. So I always kind of, let's start at the front first and see the shape we've got and see what we kind of, if we want to alter it at all. So looking at a profile first, just going to take a little bit of the hairspray to kind of, so as I'm pulling that braid back and loosening it further, I'm just spraying the hairspray into them roots just to give it a bit of a extra hold. Using this as my mirror, because I don't have a mirror. Obviously, if I was in the salon, I'd be using the mirror all the time. And if we ever wanted to make it so we felt we wanted this to join to the behind, remember we've got the back combing behind, so we can always pick up our braid. Let me try to do it so you can see. Pick up our braid, turn it up and back on itself, and that's just going to then help join the braid to the hair behind. So if you ever feel like you've got a where this is too disconnected from that, little tricks like that to kind of join it together can make everything feel a lot more fluid and together. So we'll do it again on the side so you can see. So say you wanted this braid to connect to this more, you can just pick the hair up, pick the braid up with your grip, turn it up and back on itself, and it just joins it all together a little bit more.
Nice.
Two separate pieces. Maybe one more goes through the back. So then let's pick up this braid, turn it in and back on itself, and again it's just joining it all together a little bit. And then we'll come to the other side, do the same. So again, I'm looking in my mirror, pulling it out, making sure I've got that balance. You can always put, if you want a bit more lift, you can pop a grip in or a comb in, and as you're lifting, spray a bit of hairspray. So it's then just going to hold that root that you've got. And yeah, this is where, I mean, because we've done the work in the actual, because the recipe is such a good recipe and it puts such a strong shape into the hair, this is where we can now have fun, because we can kind of play with it and, and see exactly what we want it to become. Whereas if we wouldn't have put that basic set in that's given us the texture, the basic plaiting that's given us the hair all together, and then the knot, we'd now have that thing where hair's starting to fall down and you're starting to get a bit hot and sweaty because bits are falling out here, there and everywhere. But because we've got that shape in already, this is now just becomes a really, really fun part, that you just kind of can play with and make this be exactly what you want it to become, really, which is always nicer when it's like that and you're not actually worrying about the hair falling apart on you. And then to finish off, what we can use, just grab one more grip. Just kind of, again, pull this up, back in on itself and down. So we've got that knot through the back. And then what we want to finish, like we do in the video, if you wanted to, we can then start to, soften it off by just pulling some soft pieces down around the face. And these can be as thick or as little as you want, but I would always start softly on your hairline. So you're not getting anything that's too much, and then just slowly build them up. And then you can put a bit of a curl in them if you want to have a bit of a curl in them, but this is just going to give them give everything a little bit of a softer finish. And then we've got our tongue still. So if you do take some pieces out, then you can always just tongue a few pieces very quickly, nothing too strong of a curl. Just giving them a really soft bit of bend. And
I suppose you can leave out as much.
Yeah, this is where you make it your own again, Yeah. This is where you're talking with your client and you kind of, because one of the things a lot of ladies don't like when they have hair up is everything being off of the face. So sometimes you've done the whole look, it can be off of the face and they're like, oh my God, I'm not sure I can wear this, I'm not sure. And all it sometimes is, let me just do this a second, and you just take down a few little pieces, pop some little pieces around the face, and then they're like, oh no, yeah, I like it now. Rather than taking the whole thing down and starting again, sometimes it is something just as basic as taking a couple of pieces down and just giving them, if they're wearing the hair off the face all the time, that just gives them that little bit of softness that they didn't previously have. And it just then makes it a bit more wearable for them. So it's only a few strands of hair, but it just makes it a little bit more softer than it was previously.
Looks lovely. Lisa said, what would you do if you pulled out too much? How would you fix that?
So you could use exactly the same trick. Remember what I did before? So say if I pulled too much out, get a curvy grip, put it onto the end of the piece, twist it back up, and then just put it back into your braid out of the way again. It goes back into the braid out of the way and you don't have to worry about that at all.
Yeah.
So then you can see then we've got just a really soft, and with the colour it looks a bit, a bit hippie, a bit bohemian style. Right. But, you could imagine that being a wedding hair, or it could be, it could be also could easily be a festival hairstyle for someone. If anyone in the summers doing like festival bars and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even going out for dinner. You could wear your hair like that, couldn't you?
It's very, very versatile.
It really is. Looks lovely. Let's have a look at the back again, Rory. Looks really nice.
Not through the back.
Oh, yeah. Right.
not through the back. And you also, one thing about this as well is, compared to the video, this model had much shorter hair. But again, it doesn't matter too much. So when you've got these ladies coming in that do only have like hair to about here, stuff like this where you're putting it in plaits and then getting it away is much easier for that type of like finer, shorter hair to give them still hair up. Whereas it doesn't have to always be hair that's flowing down to the ground to do it. Sometimes it's harder, if anything, to do that.
Yeah.
These lengths around here, pop it in a braid, nice little knot through the back, give it some interest, bish bash bosh. The non-string.
Fantastic, mate. It looks brilliant, Rory. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. It was a lovely little twist on the string dress. Thanks for your comment, Martin. Fantastic masterclass. Rory looks amazing. And guys, we're not going to be here for the next couple of weeks. We're coming back on the 8th of November, where Paul Watts will be doing a masterclass on the one length below, but giving you a twist on that. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you all for watching. Thank you once again, Rory. Have a wonderful week, everybody. And we'll see you all very soon. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.